Hi everyone. Almost done and ready for the beers. My name is Ariel Muslera. I'm with a company called RSK. Many of you may have heard of RSK, and I will tell you a little bit about what we've done so far and what our plans are. But before that, I wanted to kind of give you my personal views of some of the things that happened in the last couple of days, because I think are relevant for my story. I'm from Argentina, so is most of the team from RSK, and as you may know, Argentina has had a pretty large history of failures in the banking, financial, and government system in the last decades. The last big one was in 2001. We invented something that not any country that did before, which is basically freezing everyone else's bank accounts and confiscating our assets. Something similar to what Greece did a few years ago. Of course, copycatting what we did. So that triggered something in Argentina as a society, which is we are, in general, afraid of government and afraid of centralization of financial institutions. For several years after 2001, after the crisis was over, a large portion of the population didn't keep their assets and their savings in the banking system. It took us many, many years to recover from the crisis, and the banking system actually now is pretty well, but it took them 4 or 5 years after the crisis to just get back to the original level of deposits. And that's also one of the reasons why Argentina is one of the largest cryptocurrency communities in the world. Besides being, we're a relatively small country. We are 45 million people, but we have a very large cryptocurrency community, in particular Bitcoin. So I will tell you a little bit about RSK, but in the context of our idea behind this is that blockchain is a technology that can improve several degrees the lives of people that are outside of the system. And I will talk more about that later on. So it's been told over the last couple of days, internet was kind of like the first wave of decentralization in a way. It was the first open network, and everyone changed their lives because of the internet. In the early days, no one really thought about the possible potential of that, but now everyone here probably buys most of their stuff online and spends most of their money online, and of course, most of our social interactions are also online. So imagine how far we've come in just, 20 years. For us, for RSK, the Bitcoin blockchain has a potential to do something similar. But there's a problem with the Bitcoin blockchain that you probably are all aware, which is the lack of smart contracts capabilities. RSK is trying to solve that problem. And we have a roadmap, and we have been working for the last 2 years to build that and to solve that problem. So let me tell you a little about how are we tackling this. As you know, Bitcoin is the most secure network. It's the largest in terms of nodes, in terms of security, but it lacks the smart contracts capability. So the RSK team has been working adding this business logic, this smart contracts capability through a series of technological developments, and it's all open source. And I wanted to talk about 2 of the 5 co-founders of RSK. These 2 guys are very well known in the Bitcoin community. They've been around since almost the beginning. Sergio, the chief scientist, is an expert in security, in crypto security, and he's been involved in the Bitcoin core development for many, many years. And Diego is also involved in the community, and he also runs the Latin American Bitcoin community with more than 2,000 members, etc. So we've been around for a while. And my personal involvement with this company actually came this year. My background is I'm not a technologist, I'm an economist, and I've been in the venture capital space for a while. And I've known Diego for many years. And when we talked earlier this year and he told me about his vision and what this team was building, I was hooked. I've been exploring Bitcoin for a while. I had a few investments in the space, but when he told me about what RSK was trying to build and what they accomplished as a team in the last year and a half, I said, okay, how can I get involved? And that's why I'm here. So if you think about it, most of the people that came on stage have a technology background. I am not a technologist. I know enough technology to screw things up. But I do believe, and that's something that also was said around the different panels, that in order for Bitcoin and blockchain to be massively adopted, we need to get the technologist closer to the business. And that's what I want to achieve. We're a funded company. We closed our seed round back in May, and we have a roadmap. And so far, what we've achieved is in May of this year, we launched our testnet. So this is actually working. You can go online to rsk.co and test any application running on a smart contract using the Bitcoin blockchain. And by the year's end, we plan to launch our mainnet. RSK has the potential to increase the transactions per second from the current 5 to 10 transactions per second of the Bitcoin blockchain to 400. But what we found is after we achieved this and we listened to our community, we have a very large developer community around the world, is that in order for us to grow and to fulfill our vision, we needed to add a little bit of more of an infrastructure layer around it. So I want to talk about that. Because our goal at the end of the day is to achieve this. We want to have 1 billion people getting services, blockchain services around the world. And let me stop here for a second, because for us to have 1 billion people on blockchain services, there are a few things that need to happen. The first one is most of these 1 billion people should not know anything about blockchain. They are users. They're not technologists. They're not cryptographers. They don't care about stuff. Okay? Now, in the world, there are many problems, especially in emerging markets, that can be solved with blockchain technology. Our challenge is how can we develop applications that benefit from the blockchain potential, but are easy enough for the user so that they just work. Okay, that's the only way we can actually achieve something. And I challenge every developer here to think about that. Don't try to convince your users about the technology. Try to convince them about the uses, and even better, just show them the product that actually works. As Jason spoke this afternoon, just focus on the product. But for us, we're an infrastructure company, so we need to build the infrastructure to allow you guys, developers, to build on top of our infrastructure and be ready to deploy and scale so that we can all get to 1 billion people. How are we doing it? We call it the Internet of Value. So right now, this is where we are as a company. We have Bitcoin, and on top of that, we built a business logic, smart contracts capability. It's 100% compatible with Ethereum. You can do your application using Solidity and then port it to RSK. Nothing to do that. So what's next? Well, what's next is to add some core infrastructure services. Mainly, the first one we're working on, and this is something that some people have heard of already, is a payments platform. A payments platform that allows us to transact at a much higher speed than the current Bitcoin blockchain, which means lower costs. This is fundamental because, as I said, to get to 1 billion people and get some use cases, payments, micropayments in particular, is a key element. Then we're going to do storage, directory, messages, computing, and data gateway. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in each of these. What I want to give you is a sense of why are we doing this. Our idea is to have a solution, an ecosystem ready for developers to build on top of. And we know that there are some solutions that are being developed, especially for the Ether ecosystem, that solve some of these problems. And we believe that in the future, we can integrate with them, and they can be also a solution. But we don't want to wait. We want to have this infrastructure ready for anyone that wants to create applications on top of RSK. So after that, the next step is to create a friendly developer framework, which means APIs, which means libraries, and which means multilingual documentation and support. Again, think about the rest of the world. Most of the 1 billion people that I'm referring to do not speak English. So we need to make sure that their developers are easily being able to integrate with our technology by combining their skills with their language and making their lives easier. So once we have the standard APIs, the libraries, the multilingual, the other thing is have a final layer, which are some specific applications. We call it, kind of like core apps. So you could argue that some of these might be developed by third parties, and we invite any third party to develop those and incorporate it into our ecosystem. But as I said, with the core infrastructure, we want to make sure that those capabilities are within our system from day one. So we're working on building those ourselves. And if we partner with someone, that's fine. We're open to that. And by the way, RSK is an open source project, so we're very friendly with partnering with other solutions. And then after that, we create an ecosystem that has a seamless integration of core applications, that has infrastructure services, and it makes developers their lives much easier to build distributed applications. And again, when you think about libraries, what we're thinking is we would love for application developers that have no experience with distributed apps or with how blockchain works to be able to use their current languages and program in those languages and then interact with the distributed services that we run on our platform. That's how we see this ecosystem growing in the future. So the last thing is, once we have all these infrastructure systems in place and we launch it and the application developers start building our applications, we also believe that there is value in expanding this model to other blockchains. Because at the end of the day, there are some blockchains that are currently smaller or they're starting in different parts of the world. And if you go to China, there are blockchains that are mainly Chinese-based, and they have a big developer community, and they are pushing for that. If you go to other places of the world, it's the same thing. So what we think is, okay, if we want to create the 1 billion user platform, we need to bring those developers to the world. But we don't want them to drop whatever blockchain they are working on and move to ours. We think that that's kind of like forcing them to do something that they might not want. So what we want to do is we want to create a way where we replicate this model. And we're starting with Bitcoin, but then with the same approach, we're going to move to other blockchains. And the way we are choosing which blockchain is next is going to be based on the communities and the demand for those services in the communities that we're working with. So to finish, our company is called Rootstock. Rootstock is a type of plant that if you see it from above the ground, you think that there might be many. So you see different leaves. You think that there are many leaves. Each leaf seems to be their own plant. But underneath the ground, there's only one root. So it's the same plant with multiple leaves that look like different. That's what we want to represent with this. We're very excited. We're growing. And we're happy to partner with any developer or any other platform that wants to work with us. So I'll be down there with a beer. Come see me. Thank you.